Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. You need to break through your limiting beliefs. You need to go beyond what you think is possible. Wherever you were isn't where you need to be. Your past does not define your future. Life is always happening for you and not to you. For example, you got cancer. Well, you could have taken it a different direction, but it happened for you and you did something else with it. I don't have enough money. I grew up in a bad family. I'm poor. I don't have a nice car. Those limiting beliefs, those are the things that will kill you.
Really excited for today's guest. I know I say that often, but everybody we bring on has a wealth of knowledge, and particularly the guest today does. Dr. Corey Howard. He's a physician, author, and longevity expert with over 30 years of medical expertise. Originally trained as an internist and gastroenterologist, if I'm pronouncing that right, he expanded into anti-aging, functional, and regenerative medicine, earning board certification in each of these fields. His work bridges the gap between traditional medicine, functional health, and longevity science, aiming to extend not just lifespan, but health span, ensuring patients remain strong, sharp, and metabolically resilient as they age. Unlike conventional concierge physicians, Dr. Howard's approach prioritizes advanced metabolic, hormonal, and lifestyle optimization. His Live Beyond Well program, is it Live Beyond Well?
Yep.
Is that correct?
Live Beyond Well.
Live Beyond Well program shifts the focus from reactive disease management to proactive high-performance living. A dedicated athlete himself, Dr. Howard has completed an Ironman triathlon and follows a rigorous strength and nutrition plan to support longevity. He's on a mission to fix a broken healthcare system by restoring expert-driven, patient-centered care. Introducing Dr. Corey Howard.
Man, that sounds good.
It's what you've done. It's tremendous what you've done. So I wanna dive right into it. Let's start with Live Beyond Well. What does Live Beyond Well mean, and how is it different from traditional healthcare?
Yeah, first of all, I really appreciate being on this and seeing your journey and what happened. And I hope we dive into a little bit of that, because I think that from the beginning of your journey, it kind of exemplifies why this program even exists. Because if it were available for more people, they would understand how to potentially navigate the system a little bit better and get the kind of care that they need, as long as they're interested in it. But Live Beyond Well really is conceptualized from not just getting to where you could be to be healthy. When we have to define what healthy really is in a couple of minutes, but really going beyond that and understanding that anything is really possible. And where that really came from is kind of a little bit of my story, and I'll just give you a little bit about that. Is that I almost died when I was a child in a fire, and when I was about 4 years old, I didn't really have fear and thinking I was going to die and things like that, and of what I can even remember about it. It was just something that happened, was in my subconscious, and kind of was the beginning of really a lifelong journey into the never quit attitude, the never give up attitude. And the same thing is true in healthcare. It's not enough just to be okay. It's not enough just to, try to eat right and get through the day. It's about going beyond what is possible, because at the end of all of that, what you're going to really find out, and luckily in your lifetime, is that aging is probably a chronic disease. It is not something that you have to have. It's something that, you can make some choices, and I can explain a little bit about that as we go along. But that's the essence of what Live Beyond Well is.
It's important to do. It's important to note. And they say cancer treatment can age you 10 years. So, if there's a way to jump forward, there's probably a way to jump backwards, which is what you're saying. Walk me a little bit through where you started in the world of medicine and moving on from there, how it got you to here. So if you could start at the beginning and guide us through.
That's such a great question, because I had to do a lot of introspection to understand that, because I didn't think, going through high school and stuff, I wasn't like, oh, I'm going to be a doctor my whole life or anything like that. In fact, I've kind of fell into taking courses in sciences in college because I was a music major and I couldn't get the classes I wanted. So they asked me what was available, and I said biology and chemistry. But that just really opened up the door to seeing that studying and learning was really my passion. And I always wanted to know more. I wanted to do more. I wasn't like, I have to do better than you in school and, because I got to get into medical school kind of thing. It was more like, I'm just trying to learn everything I can. It turns out that a lot of the stuff that I really focused on learning during college is still applicable today in the sciences and the basic foundation of it. But essentially, I did get into medical school, went through medical school, and I wound up in psychiatry to begin with. I think mostly because I thought I needed therapy, which I guess everybody does. But it turns out I'm not a psychiatrist. And I realized pretty quickly that I was more in tune with the personality type of what was a gastroenterologist. And so I'd met somebody that in New York where I did my internship year and then came back to Florida, did internal medicine. I was chief resident of internal medicine. I was resident of the year out of 700 residents in Tampa General Hospital. And then I did a gastroenterology fellowship. So that was 2 more years of doing a lot of endoscopies and learning the GI side of things. And then I went into private practice down here in Naples. And I started that. And about 9 years into it, it's just a lot of endoscopy and a lot of work. And it turns out for me, it just kind of wasn't enough. I wanted to do more. I wanted to be more. And that's because when I realized that during my training, like every day people would leave and I'd just go to the patient's bedside and sit with them and learn their stories so that people were amazed. Like, how do you know what's going on so well with them? And I realized that was more of where I needed to be. So I went ahead and I went and did a couple more years of training and in anti-aging and functional medicine, which really opened my eyes to the root causes of diseases and the cellular mechanisms of how these things occur, which has everything to do with longevity. And then over time, continually refine that. I did write a fiction novel, which is completely unrelated. And if anybody were to read it, you'd be the other person. I did an Ironman, mostly because I was really fat and out of shape and not realizing my potential. And I just said, I've had enough. And I made a decision to go a different direction. And I think this is all going to culminate into how we can do this for medicine. And then during the last 15 years or so in what I'm doing, I continually refined it to the point of really looking at what is the human experience? What is the difference between the different kinds of curves that we really talk about related to health, lifespan, health span, and longevity, and how do those interplay? And I just found myself immersed in so much of the coolest science and people that you would want to be around, and understanding then how to take that into the clinical setting and teach it in a way that is practical and not so you don't have to wait for 10 years of the science benchmark science coming out that I can talk to you about it. So I'm not the kind of doctor like, I'm the doctor, you're the patient kind of thing. I'm not like that. I'm more like, hey, let's have a conversation and talk about it. And so that's where my practice, which is classically termed concierge primarily because in the environment, that's like a known terminology, but I call it a comprehensive health partnership because I work with people that want me to work with them. And that's where we start with. And it all really begins with the mindset, having a growth mindset and wanting to do that. And that's kind of how I got to where I am today. Constantly learning. I go by a general rule of CANI, which is constant and never ending improvement. Constantly learning and trying to, find out what the next thing is and helping people not only find out where they are, but where they want to be and help them do that. And it's a passion project. So it's something I get to do every day. It's not something I have to do.
I love that. It's so nice to meet medical professionals that just are so ingrained in their desire to help versus trying to look at everything like a math equation. Like, oh, the equation says to add this to get this. You're really trying to work people with, through their problems. Somewhere along the road, during your, traditional, I'll call it medical kind of education or upbringing, you thought to yourself, I want to do things differently. Was there a breaking point that you said, I want to kind of pave my own path as opposed to what they're designing this to be?
The funny thing about that is that's just my personality.
Okay.
This is not like something that evolved. I got better at it.
Right.
Better at, sticking up for myself.
Right.
But traditional medicine training is, you have a disease, you treat it, usually with a pharmaceutical agent, and you move on to the next thing. You're not really diving in and trying to find stuff. Even as a resident, if I were to bring my my evaluations, which I still have, and show you what they say, I mean, incredibly high marks in what I did, but they were like leader, always challenged, brought it up. You got to bring it up a notch. You got to challenge where you are, because, that's the whole live beyond well philosophy, is not just standing where you are, but finding out where can you go and never giving up. And that it kind of all goes to my entire life story of everything that I've been through, all my struggles, my personal struggles. I'm not the typical doctor, no fancy degrees, no spoon in my mouth, no parents that, just gave me whatever I needed. I mean, every single thing I went and fought for. And I know that patients need that kind of care, because they shouldn't have to fight for care. They should be able to find it and find somebody that they can trust. So I'm that guy. I'm the person that, you want somebody to call balls and strikes. You want somebody to say, this is true and this is BS. Yeah, that's me.
Okay.
And so I evolved into that, and it was a lot of work and a lot of introspection. I also did some training that has nothing to do with medicine, things like Tony Robbins, where I spent probably more than 5,000 hours doing his stuff, and just a great guy. And but other things to do to introspectively find out, how can I get into the human psyche better, my own, and then blend it in a way that when we're having a conversation as a doctor and a patient, that you feel like you can just tell me anything about anything, and then I can help you get to where you want to go. That's my philosophy.
You describe your health journey with patients as a partnership, which I really enjoy. How is your comprehensive health partnership different from traditional concierge medicine? Well,
the reality is that many, and I'm not going to say all, but many concierge practices, besides the fact that the insurance industry is a real problem and an inhibitor to a lot of really good kind of care, because it's based in a model that is, more reactive than proactive, and more drug-based than holistic-based, more like nutrition doesn't matter versus nutrition is everything. So there's a lot of the dichotomies. But a traditional concierge practice will be kind of that same model, but just better access.
Okay.
So you can call them up and you have access, but they're not going to do deep dives into every aspect of your human psyche, from your psychology to your physiology to your cardiovascular risks, in a very, very deep level, to how you exercise, how you sleep, what you eat and how you eat, and then understand all that and put it into a model that is at a cellular level, all the way right down to your DNA. Yeah, most concierge doctors don't do that, but I do.
Okay. When you're looking at that full spectrum of, hey, there's a lifestyle component to this, do you have a top 3 or even top 5? You got to be doing this.
100%.
Yeah.
Yes.
What are those basics?
So this is foundational medicine, in my opinion. All right. And this is a lot of stuff that I've been on my own personal podcast about, and a lot of what my book is about, which is lifestyle medicine. That is a form of medicine where the patient is the one in charge and has to do the work. And the basis of it is really helping to define what health really is. Because to a lot of people, if you're not sick, you're healthy. And if you're not sick, you're not going to the doctor. I want you to be coming to me because I want to prevent you from getting sick, right? And improve your health span, so prevent diseases. So that the epicenter of health is nutrition. Literally hundreds of billions of chemical reactions occurring in the human body per second. You need to feed it right. Your fitness, not just what you can do at the gym, which is important too, and muscular fitness is exceptionally important, but your brain fitness, your bone fitness, your cardiovascular fitness, your emotional fitness, those all go together. Your stress in your life and how you manage it, your sleep cycles, especially deep sleep cycles, the environmental factors, which include all kinds of endocrine disruptors and microplastics and pesticides and phthalates and all of the things that are out there that can get you. Some you can control, some you can't. And then relationships. But overseeing all of that, you have to have the mindset, the growth mindset, so that you want to do something about it. And then you realize that only 20% of what happens to you are because of your genes. 80% are those factors. And believe it or not, what those factors really do is they alter how your DNA gets read. So if you think about it, and this is why it's so important, is that your DNA is it's like a blueprint, right? But there's actually a set of DNA that sits on top of the DNA called the epigenome, which means that your DNA is not your destiny. And the epigenome is like the contractor. And then all of these other components are the things that go into building your building, realizing that you could remodel it at any time. And so now, as the contractor, you can modify how the blueprint is and have it look totally different than what it looked like originally on paper. And you can do that in real time through those lifestyle behaviors. And that is at the absolute core of living well. And it is also the thing they don't teach you in medical school and the thing that most doctors never talk about.
You mentioned stress. When I look at people around me and just in the world right now, I feel like there's a lot of stress.
You think?
There's a lot of stress. People are stressed out. Could you talk at all about like kind of this pandemic of stress that, people might be witnessing?
There's all kinds of books written on the topic right now.
Sure, yeah.
And especially in younger generations, millennial generations, there's specifically books on the topic. But the reality is that the entire world is filled with all kinds of stressors. And if you think about it, is it really any worse than the saber-toothed tiger chasing you down and trying to eat you? I mean, it's not. I mean, it's just as bad, right? If you think about it, I mean, we were designed that way.
Right.
I mean, we'll talk about why people are overweight and stuff like that, and a lot of it has to do with some of the evolutionary things, which I will bring in somebody that I follow regularly, like Peter Attia, who has a lot of these ideas. But at the end of the day, stress is something that you have some control over and don't have some control. So what do you do? Well, the way to do it is to control what you can control, right? So you can't control exterior environments. You can't control politicians. You can't control the weather. You can't control what happens, like, hurricanes here, floods there, fires wherever. You can't control those things, but you can control how you react to them. So this is, again, going back to like when I was standing watching this apartment building burn down around me and not knowing what to do. Was I stressed? I mean, I have no idea. I don't remember if I was, but I think somewhere inside of me it was like, you know what? Get back up, get back out, do it again. And, I've had times where my stress levels, because of failing a test or not performing as well as I'd like to, or having a bad outcome, which I, maybe could have controlled somewhat, but probably not. But it's not how you take the stress, it's what you do with it and how you perceive it, and then what you do about it for yourself so that you can eventually do something to help others and use that negative energy and kind of turn it around into a positive and then put it back out there in a positive light. And so if you want to make a laundry list of stressors, what happens if your child dies? That's not in the environment. What happens if you happen to get into a car accident, the person you're with, has a serious injury, or somebody gets shot there's like all of that. You still got to move forward and make something better out of that. And it's just, I think it's also kind of like what you've been through, and which I'd love to, chat about a little bit if you wanted to, but from the beginning of the story until now and what happened in between the stressors, what if you just gave up? Right. Yeah. And so you can't. And so I think the stress actually builds resiliency. And I will throw out there one thing, if every day was nice and sunny, the tree would die, right?
Ooh,
you have to have rain and stormy weather to grow the deepest roots. So stress is not necessarily a negative. It can be if you want it to be, right? You can become a victim or a victor, right? That's your choice. But you can also turn it around. And I think that that's what we have to help people get through. We have to get through, I'm sorry, this is a terrible thing that happened to you, but what can we do about it? And here you are making something great out of something that most people find their darkest moments. And you with, the videos with no hair and is in the bed at the hospital with your PICC line. And well, in that case, you probably had a subclavian line and then a PICC line and, all kinds of other things, sitting in their radiation oncology office and having that done. And, you could have just said, no, I don't want people to see this because this isn't me. But it turned into something that blew up so that people can say, you know what? If he could do that and get through it, I can get through my shitty day today or whatever like Starbucks didn't have my latte or whatever it is.
Right.
But but there are other things. I don't want to put too much light on it, but I will say that these things can make you stronger and better too.
Yes.
And it's just how you take them on. And that's kind of what I do. And if I have a person that has a bad diagnosis, like recently I had a patient diagnosed with a gastric cancer, which was, like I have no way to predict that would have happened, but helping him get through and finding other things and, taking it and saying, what else can we do and making this as best as it can be. I think that's the way to go and how to handle the stress.
Yeah. When I was diagnosed, I said, I have two options of how I can go through this. And I just said, if I can smile, I'm going to do it. And there were days where I wasn't smiling, but like you said, you find a way to move forward. I mean, a common saying when you're going through cancer is, I forget who says it, but when you're in hell, keep walking. You just keep going so you can get out.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't horrible all the time. You'd be surprised how many good moments I have going through something as awful as that. So I like hearing the way you're describing that. It's just, you got to keep moving forward. You got to keep pushing through. I think for a lot of people going through health challenges, they are stacked against kind of a lot of problems or stacked against, I don't know what the solutions are. And unless they know somebody like you or know you, it can be hard to find those solutions. So I hear people say that they feel like the healthcare system can be stacked against patients. What do you think the biggest problems that you see are in the healthcare system, and how do you think we fix them?
Oh, I would agree with those people. I think the healthcare system is stacked against patients. I mean, I think it's a horrible system. I worked in organized medicine for decades, trying to improve that, only to be met with special interest groups, pharma, food industry, and others that have enough money to change rules and stuff. So you got to take it down to the individual level. And what I would say is you have to find somebody that you trust, right? Even if it's a consultation with somebody, so I'll do some consultations, although I would rather have a longitudinal experience with patients, and try to say, this is what we need to do, but it needs to be better. The reason why it's like that, again, it starts in training. I mean, you're trained to understand disease and treat disease. Understand disease and treat disease, again, usually with a pharmaceutical agent, because they're not teaching you how to make a smoothie. I mean, in medical school, I mean, they're not teaching you that, you need to have 30 minutes at least 3 times a week of resistance training. They're not teaching you that. In fact, the opposite. You're sitting on your ass like for 20 hours a day, trying to learn as much as you possibly can, not realizing, of course, that ChatGPT and others would come out and be way better. But anyway, that's a whole different discussion. But I think it starts with the training, and then it goes into the hospital system. And, can you tell me a reason why a hospital system would really want to focus on prevention? It'd put them out of business, right? But if you take my approach and you actually improve the health of people who are already healthy and make people who are thinking about health healthier, you literally could save enough money to put it back into the system to take care of all the people that can't or won't, because there's that population too.
Right.
So I think that there's kind of a two-pronged approach and problem system that we see within healthcare. And unfortunately, people are really kind of ingrained into them that if I'm not sick, I must be healthy.
Right.
And that logic makes no sense at all, because if you're not sick, great. Let's find out how we can keep you that way in the healthy department and prevent you from getting the problems. And it turns out, again, that 80% of the problems that people get, and this is just real data, is because of the lifestyle behaviors. So, encouraging people to go outside, encouraging people to look at their nutrition, which, by the way, is very individualized. It's not one diet that's best for everybody. It's very, very individualized. How you exercise and these other factors are all the things that we stress while managing all of the other things that have accumulated in their lives, say, before they see me. Because I always use the concept of BC, before Corey. So whatever happened to you BC, we're going to try to fix before Corey, and then we'll go from there.
Sure.
And I've had some very, very good luck with patient buy-in, but I think the system is a problem. I would love to see it kind of opened up. I am a little bit afraid of how sometimes on social media there are people that are really not qualified to give the kind of advice, but they sound so good and they have great graphics and their videos are great that it just looks like, wow, we should do that. And there's only really probably a handful of people that have additional extra training and desire to take it to a different level and buck the system and say, you know what, I don't agree with how you're doing that. I'm going to do it differently. For me, unfortunately, I can't do it with the masses. I mean, I'd love to take it out and be on a public speaking tour and do, big seminars and workshops and that kind of stuff. I would definitely do that. And that could help a lot of people where we take mind-body medicine into this. But, that's like next version of what I'm doing. But I do feel that and hear it all the time that the system is very difficult to navigate, and finding the right navigator to help you can be a challenge. And all I can say to people is, really keep looking. And now, while this might not be the population watching this, there are a lot of problems with healthcare, especially for women. And in fact, somewhere on the order of 85 to 90% of women probably are not being treated properly in terms of aging medicine for menopause care, perimenopause care, hormone management, and things like that. That's just one small niche that there's enormous numbers of people that are looking to their gynecologists that aren't giving them the answers, to other doctors, to the internet, until finally landing on somebody. So I would say you got to keep looking. Find the person that you can work with. They don't have to be the all-knowing, omnipotent Oz. And if I'm dating myself here because of some people that don't know, the Wizard of Oz. But in either event, like a super smart professor that's supposed to know everything, you just have to be able to work with people.
Right.
And that's the core element of a comprehensive health partnership and Live Beyond Well, which is really working with you as a person and not the disease you have. Not just because you had cancer, but where are you next? What do you want to do next? How we dial stuff in? What testing is appropriate? And how can we do that? I think that's kind of the essence of what needs to happen in this very dysfunctional healthcare system we're currently in.
Sure. No, I agree. I think there are certainly flaws in the system. And I always, whenever I hear that, though, I always like to give a little bit of props to innovation side of the healthcare system, because I do recognize that a lot of the solutions that were created that I went through were part of the reason my life was saved. But to your point, what I love about what you do is it's not one or the other. It's not just, science and innovation or just, functional practice. It's a blend. And that's what you're saying you do is you meet the person, you understand who they are, and you create a specialized plan for them. You create...
Sounds like marketing. Meet the client where they are.
No, but it's real that you find the right solution for people. So I think that's impactful. You mentioned three things to me: lifespan, health span, and longevity. What's the difference between the three, and why does it even matter?
Oh, it matters because it's at the core of really everything. So let's explain this. I'd love to do it on a board, but I won't because the board is over there. But in either event, I think I can explain it so that people who are not necessarily going to watch this but want to listen to it. So lifespan is you live and you die. That's pretty much it. It's a pretty self-explanatory number. The only problem is that the curve is not straight. It's not like live and die. The curve is like here and then kind of slow death with chronic disease. And again, 80% of that is due to the lifestyle behaviors that we discussed previously. That's number one. So that's curve A.
Okay.
Curve B is you work on these lifestyle behaviors and you improve health over time towards the end. So here's curve A, and then curve B takes it here. Now, you will live a little bit longer because we do know that people that are engaged in healthy behaviors will live a little bit longer, but we are not talking about longevity. We are just talking about you'll live a little bit longer. I don't know how many years that is, but you will. That curve is you live longer without having chronic diseases. That's health span. The next curve is when you take lifespan and you add more health span to it, and it brings it out to here. That delta, we have no idea. Is it 120 years that people can live? 150? Is it 200 years? Is it forever? Because again, a lot of scientists, such as David Sinclair's work on yeast, specifically in Harvard University, he's an entrepreneur, a scientist entrepreneur who works diligently on this, and actually wrote a book called Lifespan, which if people haven't read it or listened to it, I'd rather listen to it than read it, because he reads it and he's Australian. He's got a great accent, so it's fun to listen to, and you can understand it. And he's pretty funny at certain times, but that's what lifespan is. And so the when I draw that curve, that C curve, that last part, I always put a question mark at the end because I have no idea. But I will tell you, there's a lot of people out there that are saying you should have extra broccoli juice, or you should do all these things, or biohacking, which is really trying to understand the underlying cell biology on how aging occurs. And I could talk a little bit about that if you want to, and really doing some of that, whether it be light therapy, cold therapy, heat therapy, electroshock therapy, certain supplements, or, whatever, in addition to lifestyle behaviors, right? Because those are the foundation of it all. Well, but we don't know. And then there's actually some things that occur at the cellular level that you can really do something about. Like, for example, as your cells get older, the DNA gets a little wonky and it starts to read incorrectly, and you get some mismatches, which leads to what is the aging process. And those cells, called senescent cells, they're kind of like dead, and they're inflammatory, and they all cause all kinds of problems, and you got to get rid of them. And so there's like emerging way to work at that level too. And that's what longevity ultimately will become.
I want to go back to what you just mentioned, biohacking. It's big buzzword topic right now, big topic. What is biohacking? And, from what you know about it, what are your favorite biohacks, if that's the right way to say it?
Well, I'm always going to come back down to the basics.
Okay.
Because like if you're talking about, football, it's about blocking and tackling. If you're talking about basketball, you're talking about dribbling and shooting. I mean, professional basketball players practice dribbling every single day.
Right. Why?
They were like little kids. Don't know how to dribble already? No. It's something because it's a basic foundation. So nutrition, fitness, sleep, stress, environmental factors, relationships, mindset, genetics, foundation.
Those are biohacks.
That's the that's the foundation of biohacking.
Gotcha.
Like if you don't do all of that and you just go ahead and do cold plunge because you think it's going to boost your immune system, have at it.
Yeah.
That ain't biohacking.
Right.
But you have to do the basics first. Now you add to that. What else can you do? Can you take some, we'll start with outside of the area of nutrition, just in supplements. Are there certain supplements that you can use? Yeah, there are things that are emerging to enhance your mitochondria, which is like your nuclear power plant of your cells that take protein, fats, and carbohydrates and turn them into energy. They're in nucleated cells, which are mostly in your muscles. So that's real reason why to build up muscle over time, because frailty is a cause of death for a lot of people. And so, how do we do that? Well, certain supplements can do that. What else do? They also can stimulate certain cell products. One of them is called sirtuins, which actually can help to alter how DNA gets read and ultimately change some ways that whole process is, and work on these dying cells called senescent cells. So that's biohacking at its core. Then you can look at things like, are there devices that can help you aid in some of these other things, like sleep aids and things like that. And then, I mentioned cold plunge, which, has some validity if, you don't die when you go in there. and sauna. So you get the combination between vasoconstriction and the cold vasodilation when you get out, and that kind of releases some of the toxins in the body. And then after that, then you start to look at, well, what else can there be? And people are doing wacky stuff. I mean, transfusions on themselves, doing what's called plasmapheresis, which is kind of taking out certain elements, which is highly dangerous, and things like that. And you get into a very wacky world and a place where people are very vulnerable to scam artists. And I think the internet, especially social media, kind of promotes a lot of that.
Yeah.
And I think we have to be careful, which is why you need a trusted advisor to navigate it. I will never say that I know everything about all this stuff, but if you're somebody that brings me some information, we look at it up together and say, because I might be able to interpret it differently. And I think that's the essence of it. But again, I want to emphasize that don't skip the basics and go right for a big baggie full of supplements, like a lot of, say, functional medicine doctors like myself just do that. You walk out of their office with $1,000 worth of supplements because they convinced you.
Right.
I'm like, no, I'll help you find the stuff on Amazon.
Yeah.
Or some products that I think might be good for my office. And I think a lot of times when a physician becomes very popular because of a topic, could be biohacking, could be something else, and they develop their own supplement line and they sell it because they got 3 million followers or whatever, which is fine, capitalist, but is it good for everybody? So again, go back to the basics, but biohacking is taking all of that stuff to like another level and looking at it inside the cell and what's going on and how can we do something about it. That's really what biohacking is. And eventually you can also get into what's called CRISPR technology, which is looking at your genes and then altering them. So for example, like a biohack for somebody with sickle cell disease would be to take their genetics and put it through a CRISPR device where they can actually reinsert the genes, the nucleotide base pairs that are wrong in their DNA and put them back into their bone marrow, and then they're cured. Or Huntington's disease and stuff like that. Just they're very, very expensive right now and they're not ready for prime time for everybody. But that's like biohacking at its just most unbelievable nature.
From a very molecular level. Yes. It sounds like
literally changing your DNA.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, when I learned about CAR T-cell therapy, that almost sounds, it's not the same, obviously, but
no, it's very similar.
Yeah, it sounds very similar, and it's cool to see the innovation being able to leverage what we have within our body and altering it a little bit to, or adding into it what we need. So it's certainly really cool to see the science continue to move forward.
Got to stay up on top of it too.
Definitely. In terms of new research and science, what are the most exciting advancements in longevity science today?
I mean, I do think that if people are really interested, again, Dr. David Sinclair and his book Lifespan is a very, very good starting point to understand that, because it's all going to come down to how can we help the DNA. So let me just explain that a little bit, because what happens is that, first of all, you have chromosomes, and at the ends of the chromosomes are called telomeres, and they're like the end caps that hold the DNA all together, right? And over time, what happens is that become unraveled. And usually what happens is, so you have a strand of DNA, which is your genetic code, the blueprint, and your body creates a way to read the DNA and turn it into a way to make a protein. Now, that protein is made up of amino acids. So this is why protein in your diet is very important, because you need the amino acids to build these proteins that your DNA is making. And what happens is that your DNA could kind of take a little bit of a turn and read it incorrectly, or make the protein have a slightly different structure than it's supposed to, and it leads to illness and it leads to disease. Well, we're finding out that level of stuff. And, it's not something like you're in clinical medicine that you're just going to be like, oh yeah, I casually came upon this. Let me give you this, and you can do this little baggie full of stuff. No, this is like beyond what the clinician can do yet. Certain things we can help with, but there are science that is evolving that we really cannot put onto patients yet, either because they haven't been tried on humans or they've been in animal studies. And there's a lot of studies. I mean, the reality is that your genes do not define your destiny. And it's like the agouti mouse, which is an obesity mouse. So it has an obesity gene. When you feed that mouse like a crappy diet, guess what? They get obese. When those mice that are obese have baby mice, guess what? The baby mice are obese. When you put the baby mice back on a diet, it turns the gene off and they become thin again. And so you have that kind of ability to do certain things, but what we're finding out is which ones turn things on and off and how to do that outside of just through nutrition and fitness and that stuff. And that's where that science is going. It's beyond even what I can do, but it is absolutely fascinating. And the thing is, it's like having cancer. You know, if somebody told you there's no hope, you'd be like, what the fuck? I mean, like, sorry about that, but you know, it'd be like, forget it.
Right.
But the reality is, if we tell people there's no hope for your life expectancy, they'd be like, okay, let me just go party like, you know, it's 1999 kind of thing.
Right.
Versus making sure that you take the steps every single day to help yourself improve. You know, general rule for people, improve yourself 1% every day. Just 1%, just a little bit. And I know we've talked about this before, not so much with you, but on other podcasts, especially my own, but improving yourself just 1% a day, whether it be helping somebody else, learning something new. And all of those things are pretty much the equivalent to your own personal biohacking. And that's where the science is going, to help people understand that there's hope, and that helps them drive themselves to the next level to want to be better than they are. Not everybody, by the way, not everybody, but there are enough people that want to, that we can have a real movement to make something happen with real professionals driving that whole scene, where we can have a center to discuss this stuff and come up with new great ideas.
Yeah. The innovation sounds really exciting.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Alongside those innovations, though, there's a lot of misconceptions out there. What are some of those big misconceptions that people have alongside aging and longevity?
Well, they think that they're just going to die. That aging is inevitable. You know, I get to a certain age, I should just go to a nursing home. Not so much in our town here in Naples, Florida, because, you know, people don't come down here to die. They come here to play pickleball, you know, and exercise and you know, kind of find the fountain of youth that Ponce de Leon really kind of was looking for when he came down. The reality is that the fountain of youth is within all of us. We just have to be able to tap into it. And so the idea that your genes defined your future is completely false. That's number one. Number two is another falsity is that, you know, as we get older, we shouldn't, you know, weight train. So there was, you know, a lot of people in their 70s and 80s, again, not so much in our town, but in other places around the country and around the world, they're like, yeah, you know, we don't want you to get hurt. But huge study out of Australia, the Liftmore study, where a physical therapist actually designed this program, clearly showed improvement in osteoporosis, which is thinning of your bones, muscularity, and a decrease in frailty, which is what causes falls and eventually fractures and death, really can help you. So the idea that you shouldn't do that is like, no. I mean, I got my people, I'm like, go to the gym. Like, no, don't you have a pill? No, you're in the wrong practice, my guy. You know, you need to go to the gym, and this is what you need to do. And, you know, even for me, I'm constantly learning what is the newest technique on building muscle, you know, listening to different podcasts and understanding stuff and how to do protein and things like that. The other thing is that, and this is a lot in the doctor world, is that diet doesn't matter. You know, just kind of go eat whatever you want. And so that's why we've got 75% of the United States as overweight or obese, which those inflammatory markers that occur within your body fat lead to many of the diseases that we have. In fact, obesity is the #1 cause of death in the United States, leading to heart disease and cancers and other stuff like that. So the idea that you can't make a change is like absurd, and you can. Again, you have to want it, #1, right? The teacher arrives when the student is ready. So if you're not ready, well, no number of diets or exercise programs out there are going to help you. No matter how many podcasts there are and YouTube videos and everything else, it ain't going to happen. Like, you can't just watch a bunch of golf videos and, go play golf. I mean, you got to go. Yeah. They might help, but you got to go out and you have to have somebody help you. And that's a guide, that's a physician. So I consider myself in what I do, not just a doctor, but a coach and a guide. And so the other part of that for people is that my doctor can't really help me or doesn't want to help me. And that's not true. The system is stacked against the physician. The insurance industry, large groups, and the healthcare system just in general is geared towards profit and moving people through a pipeline and treating them. Whereas most doctors, they don't want that. They want to be able to sit down with you and spend the time and use their craft, their art, and their science, and all the years of expertise that they've developed over time. Most physicians, and that's not happening. And so the fact is that your doctor can help you. So,
okay, it's good. I mean, I want to continue to emphasize this. It is so nice to hear how integrated that you are with the patients that work with you, and it's not just you come in. You get your time frame. We'll talk about the problems that you have, and then you're on your way. You really integrate into their lives, in getting to know them and helping them to improve their lifestyle moving forward. That's really great. You talk a lot about all of these, modalities that people should include within their lifestyle. I mean, you yourself raced an Ironman. How did that experience shape some of your medical philosophy, and how did you train for that? I mean, tell me about it.
Well, like I said early on, I mean, I was really very, very overweight and out of shape and mentally in a bad state and working all the time and not taking care of myself. I'm like, what am I doing? And so I was literally out west in Park City, one of my favorite places in the United States, and attempting to mountain bike. I say attempting because I was terrible and just really thought I was going to die. I couldn't eat enough power bars at the time, which were obviously now pure sugar. But the reality is that I made that decision, and I just started myself on a program where I devoured everything I could on training, on sleeping, on periodization of training, on eating, and how to integrate all those things, and then had the right mental attitude. And I already had the never quit part, so that was not going to be a problem. I would push my way through no matter what. I mean, I went from not being able to run 1 mile to doing an Ironman, which is, a pretty long day generally. For me, it was like about a little less than 12 hours, but it can take a little bit longer sometimes. But that experience shaped everything for me. One, it showed me for sure that anything is possible. If I could do it, freaking anybody could do it, first of all, because I was not a runner at all. If I was good at anything, it would be cycling. I was fairly good at that portion of it. I mean, it's the funniest thing. I start swimming, right? So I show up to the pool the first time. I got like nose clips and freaking, I look like a goofball. And it took me a while to be able to gist that out and be able to swim and get hypoxic, low oxygen and really take risks in a pool. But the thought of going out and swimming in open water was like not a thought. I mean, I could like swim in a pool not to drown. So that experience, again, showed me that same kind of resiliency that tapped into that for me, and then understood more about nutrition and learned and met people that were just some of the coolest people that were doing things like, that guy's 75 years old and he could run around me, literally. I mean, I remember cycling, training for this Ironman in Colorado, and I was taking my bike from Vail to Copper Mountain, so you go over Vail Pass, and I'm like dying. I'm going up this thing, and I thought I was in good shape, and some woman who was probably 20 years older than me, she's on a mountain bike, she just passes right up me. I'm like, golly. So every single thing I did was like, we could be better. Not just I can be better. We can be better. We can do better. We can do better in healthcare. We can do better in everything that we do. We can do better in learning what we do, our craft, constantly learning and never giving up. And that's what Ironman taught me.
What is the future of longevity medicine? And how do you see that involved in your work to help people optimize their health in the future?
Well, I personally think, and again, this is probably a minority opinion within the field of medicine, but I agree that aging is probably a chronic disease. I believe that we can do a lot to extend the lifespan and health span of people, i.e. longevity. And I think, again, it's the basics plus the newest science that is coming out. And so I think that it's a very, very bright potential future. I'm 60, and so, I'm not looking to crash and burn anytime soon. So I have my own personal reasons to really want to learn more, because anything I learn, and I've always been like this, I will immediately transfer to anybody willing to listen. And usually my patients first, and then seminars and lectures and my book and things like that. And I think that that's kind of the future of what it is. But again, I have to emphasize that people have to know what the basics are and be encouraged to do it, because, what's easy to do is easy not to do. It's easy to take your shoes out in the morning. It's also easy not to.
Right.
It's easy to walk out the door and start walking. Man, it's easy not to. So I like to use a term which I believe, several other people have used in the past, which is net time. And that is no extra time. So that's time where I'm out walking or riding or exercising, and I'm listening to podcasts, to videos, to books, to anything that I can do that's utilizing my time while something else is going. And I think everybody can do that. And that would be something I would offer to people to give a try, to not just focus on what you're doing. Although, if you're in the middle of brain surgery, maybe focus on that.
Right.
Don't listen to a podcast. But if you're out working out and doing stuff, try to utilize your time. Every minute I'm in the car, and I only have a 2-mile drive to my office every morning. I don't bicycle, because bicycling in Naples is like a deadly sport these days. But I do ride my car, and I listen to whatever section of podcast back and forth every single time. Anytime I'm doing something like that. And that's what I encourage people to do. And I think that's their own little way to biohack themselves into success.
I didn't mean to kind of jump quickly from your Ironman experience, but you made a distinct decision. You said, I'm going to do this. Despite any challenges I'm facing, despite any limiting beliefs I may have, I'm going to just jump in and do this. One, what advice would you have for somebody who feels like they can't do it? And then to accompany that, what is one piece of advice you tell somebody to do to start today on their road to longevity?
Yeah, well, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. All right? That's Henry Ford.
Right.
And so the reality is that your mindset is the first part. So Carol Dweck, is the one that really masterminded what is the growth mindset. And I would encourage people to understand that and to take a look at, what that really means. A piece of advice that I would give somebody today is, first, I want to key on one thing you just said, which is the term limiting beliefs. We all have some limiting beliefs. You need to break through your limiting beliefs. You need to go beyond what you think is possible, because wherever you were isn't where you need to be. Your past does not define your future, and life is always happening for you or not to you. So that's a Tony Robbins thing. But life is always happening for you and not to you. For example, you got cancer. Well, you could have taken it a different direction, but it happened for you and you did something else with it, right? Every single thing that you do in your life, you can do the same thing. It's not that, oh, I'm here, I don't have enough money, I grew up in a bad family, I'm poor, I don't have a nice car, my friends or whatever. Those limiting beliefs, those are the things that will kill you. You need to break through the limiting beliefs. And so the thing that I would tell you is, get off your butt. Sedentary
Right now.
Sedentary lifestyle, 9% of all deaths in the world are due to sitting on your butt. 9%. That is a massive number. Okay? So number one, get off the couch. Get out of the chair. They are talking about these days that the chair is like the next tobacco. And that's been going on for a while now. So, then of course they came up with standing desks and all that other stuff, because that study came out and said that this is a really dangerous thing to be sitting on your butt. Our watches are telling us, okay, time to get up, which, mine hasn't told me that, even though we've been sitting here. But the reality is, get up and start moving. And I will throw out one other thing, is that the importance of muscular training, resistance training, is probably the number one thing to do. So if you have a choice of, going for a run or going to the gym and actually doing some resistance training, go to the gym. That will pay the biggest dividends for you in your life, because the thing that kills you at the end of life is frailty.
Yes, I've heard this a ton. My radiation oncologist, Dr. Bruce Nagfor, is at the forefront of exercise oncology, and there's so much research around musculoskeletal mass in association to mortality. And I think it's incredible that there's this huge wave of popularity around cardiovascular exercise and running, and I think that's great, but it's also diminished the importance of strength training, resistance training.
Absolutely.
So I love that you're saying that. I want to touch on something that you're working on, your book. You're working on a book, Live Beyond Well. Can you talk about what's going to be included in that? Where are you at with it?
Yeah.
Plug it a little bit. I want to hear about it.
It's a great project. I'm so excited about it. So I hope, with extreme amount of work in the next 4 to 6 months, I can get the first draft out. And now that I said that, I kind of have to, right?
Now, yep, we're holding to it.
I did want to put it out. I did want to put it out in the universe. So I'm all about putting pressure on myself.
Yep.
But so Live Beyond Well is the philosophy of everything that we talked about today.
Yep.
It really starts with understanding why I would even write this book, and why I feel, that I might be qualified to give this message. And I had to have some conversations with people to even boost myself up, because, I'm not as good as somebody else. I don't have a big of a following online and stuff. And I just wasn't like that, although it's emerging. But the book starts with understanding what the problems really are, including the problem with education, politics, the pressures in Congress, and why we can't move things along. Why can't we get better healthcare, that kind of stuff, to understanding, these lifestyle behaviors, and go into a deep dive on every one of them. And in the nutrition part, talking about, the macronutrients, carbohydrates, fats, and proteins, and understanding how that works and why that works, and what we really need and what we don't really need. Not so much about supplements and stuff, although I will mention a little bit about that in the longevity chapter. And then it will go on to each one of those components, and then putting it together into a way that is will wind up being an actionable plan. And along the way, I'll have a chapter on the mitochondria and the energy power plant. I'll have a section on longevity and the nuances and the new stuff that's really happening, and how, this is an emerging field in real evolution, in real time. And then again, at the end of the book will be a protocol that you can follow. And in fact, in the beginning of the book, I actually tell you how to read the book.
Okay.
So I say, this is what you should do, and then you go back, and this is how you do it. And every single chapter will have a section of take-home points that you can just go through those for a quick review of everything that was talked about.
Sure, that's great. One of the main points that I love about this opportunity to sit down with you and people like you is you provide options for people that want to heal, that maybe they didn't know about you, and maybe they're listening and said, I want to work with Dr. Corey Howard. What is the best way for them to do that?
Well, the best way is just go on my website, howardhealthandwellness.com, and, leave a message, set up an appointment, do a meet and greet. My model is, because the healthcare system is a non-insurance based model, because what I do goes far beyond what insurance would actually want to do. And the kind of practice I have appeals to a wide variety of people. It's not just, people of great wealth later on in life. In fact, it's not even that expensive overall. But if you're in your 20s and you're just struggling and getting started, it may not be good. So maybe the book is the best place to start.
Sure.
As well as maybe some seminars and some literal programs that I really intend on doing in the future. That would be kind of like the next phase of things. But they should just go online and let us know. And we're happy to talk to them. I do meet and greets all the time to just talk about my philosophy and If it resonates, great. If it's too expensive, that's great too. And hopefully when my book comes out, those people will benefit from the philosophy and take it upon themselves to take massive action, the kind of massive action that's necessary to alter your life.
Sure. And I'll include all those links in the show notes.
Appreciate it.
But I appreciate you coming on and sharing your expertise with us. It means the world to me, and I'm so glad that we're able to showcase it to everybody listening. So, Dr. Howard, thank you for coming on again, and I'm looking forward to talking to you again soon.
Yeah, thank you so much. And you're an inspiration to a lot of people. I think that taking your story and doing what you've done is a really great service to a lot of people. And keep going.
Thank you. I will.